You're lying in bed in complete darkness, with only the muted glow of moonlight filtering through the curtains. Next to you sleeps a woman who trusts you with her whole heart. You hear her steady breathing, feel the rhythmic beat of her heart. Her hand rests on your chest in peaceful trust. But inside you, a battle is raging. Every cell in your body is tense, as if you're on a battlefield rather than in the safety of your bed. You're consciously controlling your breathing to make it seem natural, clenching and unclenching your fists beneath the covers, mentally counting the seconds until you can accidentally turn over to your other side, breaking this agonizing physical contact. I want you to forget, for a moment, all those popular psychological cliches about male emotional reserve. This isn't just a personality trait or some innate characteristic. It's an incredibly complex defense mechanism that's been built in your psyche over years, possibly decades. It's a multi-layered system of psychological defense, comparable to a modern state's air defense network. But today, we're going to perform surgical operation to dismantle it. Without mercy and without compromise. Let's call things what they are. Your fear isn't really about intimacy itself. You're afraid of the chaos that might erupt when all your inner defenses come crashing down. You're terrified of confronting that suppressed, vulnerable, fragile self that you've been hiding for decades behind a mask of strength and confidence. That inner child you once locked away in the farthest room of your consciousness. Here's the first and most crucial revelation that will transform your understanding of yourself. Genuine emotional intimacy equals complete and unconditional surrender of control. And for the male psyche, raised in a paradigm of dominance and management, control isn't just a desire. It's a fundamental need, comparable to the instinct of self-preservation. Throughout your entire life, from kindergarten, through school, university, and work, you've been taught to be a fortress. Not just strong, but an impenetrable citadel. To solve other people's problems, to take responsibility for others' lives and destinies, to be the pillar around which other people's worlds revolve. Yet true, deep emotional connection requires you to voluntarily tear down these fortifications. It's like ordering a general to surrender a city without a fight, to open the gates to the enemy, to allow foreign troops to enter the holy of holies of your inner world. This is what I call the empty Garrison Syndrome. What if behind those impenetrable walls, behind those massive gates, behind that complex system of psychological defenses, there's just emptiness? What if the image of the strong man you've so carefully cultivated over the years is just a facade, with no real personality behind it? What if you yourself don't know who you are without these defense mechanisms? This subconscious anxiety can paralyze your will more powerfully than any rational fear. The second fundamental insight touches the very nature of male identity. Traditional masculinity is built around verbs, around actions. But genuine closeness is a state of being, not doing. Try this thought experiment. Remember the last time you had sex. That was an action with a specific goal. Remember flirting, that's a game with rules. Even courtship is a series of steps toward a result. Now imagine this. You're simply lying next to a woman, both of you silently staring at the ceiling. No goals, no actions, just shared existence. This knocks you out of your familiar role, creating existential discomfort. You feel ungrounded because you don't know who you are when you're not achieving, conquering, or solving specific problems. This is what psychology calls the Doer Trap, the fundamental conflict between social expectations and existential needs. Your brain has been programmed for years toward linear, goal-oriented thinking, constant movement from point A to point B. But intimacy is static presence at a point. It has no direction, no measurable outcome, no algorithm. And this absence of familiar mental structure creates genuine panic in your mind. The third realization might be the most surprising, and therefore the most resisted. Deep emotional attachment unconsciously connects to your very first experience of closeness, your relationship with your mother. And this represents one of the deepest psychological taboos in male socialization. Your first, most complete experience of intimacy was with her. With your mother. That state of complete psycho-emotional fusion, absolute acceptance, and unconditional safety. Then began the painful but necessary process of separation, the difficult birth of your male identity. Be a man. Your father, peers, and society repeated. And this social imperative implicitly meant, abandon the need for unconditional tenderness. Suppress the desire to be fully accepted, without judgments or achievements. This is what depth psychology calls the shadow of the womb, a powerful archetypal pattern influencing your adult relationships. Any woman with whom you form a deep connection becomes an unconscious reminder of that first paradise of unconditional love you were ordered to forget. That original security you paid for with your emotional autonomy. The fourth insight concerns the nature of emotions. Spontaneous emotional expressions are perceived by your psyche as threatening chaos. While the traditional male role demands you embody order and structure. You see her crying over a silly TV show. Hear her contagious laughter for no apparent reason. Witness her sudden fears and irrational worries. This is a whole ocean of spontaneous feelings you're being invited to enter. But you were taught. Your job is to build dams against this ocean of emotions. To stay on the safe shore of rationality. To be the rock against which all waves of feeling break. This is what I call the curse of the rock. The tragic paradox of male nature. A rock cannot afford to soften under water's influence, or the first storm will wash it away. You subconsciously fear that if you truly let her emotions, and through them your own, penetrate inside, they will erode the foundation of your personality. They'll blur your boundaries, destroy your clear, structured understanding of yourself. The real existential pain doesn't come from possibly being misunderstood by your partner. The pain is born from realizing that you don't understand yourself in these dark, unfamiliar waters of your own suppressed feelings. You're afraid of getting lost in the labyrinths of your own psyche, losing control over what you've kept tightly managed for years. But what if your control is just an illusion created for your ego's comfort? What if true strength isn't about building impenetrable walls, but about having the courage to exist without them while still remaining yourself? About being able to survive and keep your identity when familiar defense mechanisms are gone. Start with the smallest step. With one microscopic crack in your emotional armor. That's enough to begin the transformation. Next time she embraces you in a moment of tenderness, notice that automatic internal resistance. Feel how your back and shoulder muscles tense up involuntarily, how your breathing becomes shallow. Then consciously, with deliberate effort, take a deep, slow exhale. Let your muscles relax. Stay in that contact for just 1 second longer than usual. Just 1 second. That's enough for the first step. Try sharing with her not just facts and events from your life, but your genuine feelings and experiences. Not, I had a tough day at work, but I feel completely drained today, like a squeezed lemon, and it's this unpleasant feeling of emptiness and exhaustion. These are fundamentally different levels of communication. The first is just an information report. The second is a sincere, vulnerable invitation into your inner world. Allow her to sometimes see your uncertainty, your lack of knowledge in areas where you usually present yourself as an expert. You're afraid she'll think, he's weak, incompetent. In reality, she'll most likely think, he's real, human, multidimensional. And authenticity is the foundation of genuine, deep attraction, unlike superficial infatuation. Consciously shift your focus in the relationship. Move from the destructive mindset of being strong for her to the healthy position of being real with her. These create fundamentally different energies, different vibrations. The first is constant, exhausting tension. The second is long-awaited relief and the freedom to be yourself. That's when real psychological alchemy happens, that mysterious process of transformation. You don't become weaker, you become larger, more substantial, more complex as a person. You add an entirely new dimension to your traditional, socially approved strength, depth and multifacetedness. True, mature self-confidence isn't the absence of fears and doubts. It's the ability to remain yourself, to maintain your wholeness even when fears are present, when doubts are gnawing at you from within, including when you're afraid of your own vulnerability, your own humanity. You don't need to tear down your psychological defenses in one day. That's impossible and unnecessary. They formed over years for your survival. Just start occasionally going into town from your emotional fortress. Take small walks in the surrounding meadows of genuine closeness. Breathe the air of true, unlimited emotional freedom. Understand this fundamental principle. Real intimacy isn't about destruction, isn't about merging into one being while losing your own identity. It's about two whole, self-sufficient, mature universes consciously choosing to touch each other with their most vulnerable, most valuable parts. Without fear of losing your wholeness, but with the courage to open up to another. Next time you physically feel that familiar steel rod inside you, that psychological armor, don't engage it in furious battle. Just ask it a mental, exploratory question. What exactly are you guarding? What wound? What fear? And is it really necessary to guard it right now, in this specific moment with this specific person? The answer might genuinely surprise you, revealing layers of your psyche you never knew existed. A fortress where no one lives, where you never hear children's laughter or sincere conversations. That's just a pile of cold, lifeless stones. You didn't build it to die alone within its walls, in an atmosphere of sterile safety. You built it so someone truly valuable could take shelter there from life's storms, including you yourself, your authentic self, which has been waiting so long for the chance to step out of the shadows.